has served to justify the militarization of the U.S.-Mexico border and the promulgation of security policies and practices that lead to extensive abuses and a culture of near impunity. Nowhere is the criminalization of immigrants seen more clearly than in United States federal courthouses along our southwestern border, where a zero-tolerance program called Operation Streamline is implemented. Under this program, apprehended immigrants are charged for illegally entering or illegally re-entering the United States, and then are sentenced to federal prison before being repatriated in order to introduce more punitive consequences for entering the country without authorization or proper documents. The program's created a mass assembly line legal system and has overwhelmed courts on the southwestern border, where men and women 40 to 80 are shackled hand and foot and put in front of courtrooms for trial proceedings. In practice, it diverts judicial resources away from towards criminally prosecuting migrants, many of whom spend time in criminal facilities at the cost of about $1 billion a year, for committing the crime of looking for the opportunity to support their families or reunite with family members already in the United States. The consequences of this national narrative of criminalization and deterrence-based strategies have led to the blocking of pragmatic immigration policies and a deadly situation on the U.S.-Mexico border. In 2009, the ACLU of San Diego released a joint report with Mexico's National Human Rights Commission, in which it estimated that over 15 years, 5,600 migrants had died trying to cross the border as a result of enforcement policies that intentionally forced people into harsh, environmentally dangerous areas. The U.S.-Mexico border death toll is equivalent to 1 death a day, with 7–11% being children. Moreover, Customs and Border Protection agents systematically use excessive force, including deadly and lethal force, and these abuses are subject to minimal oversight and accountability. Since January of 2010, 20 individuals have died or been seriously injured by CBP officials in use of force incidents. Of these, 8 cases involve agents responding to individuals alleged to be throwing rocks. 6 cases involve individuals who were killed while standing on the Mexican side of the border but killed by U.S. border enforcement officials. 6 individuals killed were under the age of 21, and 5 were United States citizens. For example, in May 2010, CBP officials beat and electroshocked Anastasio Hernandez Rojas to death at the San Diego San Ysidro port of entry. An eyewitness video shows that CBP officers administered 5 electroshocks while he was handcuffed and surrounded by approximately a dozen agents, one of whom appears to have his knee on the man's neck. Deeply concerned by the case, 16 members of the United States Congress submitted a letter demanding investigation, but it took 2 years and a television broadcast of the video for a grand jury to be convened. That investigation remains pending. And then we have the case of 15-year-old Sergio Hernandez Huerica, who was shot and killed by a Border Patrol agent in June of 2010 and went similarly uninvestigated until the United States Department of Justice conducted its own inquiry, which concluded with an announcement in April 2012 of this year. The announcement marked the first publicly concluded investigation of a recent case of lethal force by CBP officials, and no corrective action was taken. DOJ concluded that the agent did not act inconsistently with CBP policy or training regarding use of force, which seemingly affirmed CBP's practice of justifying use of lethal force in response to rock throwing. Moreover, DOJ problematically concluded that grounds for civil prosecution were not met because Hernandez Huerica was not within the borders of the United States. DOJ's finding sets a dangerous precedent that the United States would give law enforcement free rein to shoot and kill individuals across international borders without constitutional scrutiny or accountability. The frequency and regularity of CBP's use of lethal force is alarming, and it demands a comprehensive, independent investigation of CBP policies and practices. In addition to use of lethal force and deadly force, we also receive complaints of CBP agents that include sexual abuse, unwarranted and invasive personal searches, unjustified and repeated detention based on misidentification, and the use of coercion to force individuals to surrender legal rights, citizenship documents, or property. An administrative complaint filed by the ACLU in May of this year with the Department of Homeland Security documented 11 cases of such abuse at ports of entry along the U.S.-Mexico border. Inadequate oversight and unenforceable custody standards have contributed to cruel, degrading, and ill treatment of individuals detained and held in the custody of CBP personnel at ports of entry or short-term holding facilities along the U.S.-Mexico border. The ACLU is deeply, deeply concerned by these systematic abuses. It is essential that the United States launch a comprehensive external investigation to examine CBP's policies and practices to address these systematic abuses. And the ACLU calls on the United States government to implement the following reforms. CBP agents must be held accountable for human rights abuses at the border. I'll end it there, but I want to share that we have a number of reforms recommended, and a copy of a written statement, which is longer and includes more information, is also provided at the back. And let me just thank the international community, and we urge you to closely scrutinize the United States record of ignoring fundamental human rights of individuals at our international borders. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your contribution, and thank you for your understanding. But I want to give time for other questions as well as to hear the reaction of the panelists.